Praise the Lord, Saints. This is Elder Adrian Heyman. As you may well know, I do certain things in series, and dealing with the 27 amendments to the U.S. Constitution is one of those things that I do on an ongoing basis. We've done 23, so we only have 4 more to go. And usually I do this and look at it from the view of a saint of God. Some things lend to it, some things, be honest, don't lend that much to it, but it's good to understand it. The reason why I do this is so that even if we don't know the ins and outs of it completely, we understand that we have an amendment for that particular action. The reason why I'm not really doing the basic doctrine of the Constitution, what the various articles, is because most of the articles deal with the powers granted to the executive, legislative, and the judicial branch of the United States, not necessarily the rights that citizens are taken, or essentially the rights that we have in terms of either what's been given to us by these particular amendments, or what things are prevented us to have to suffer through in terms of these amendments. And right now I'm on amendment number 24, and it's the abolition of poll taxes. Now, explain that as I go through it. It's really not a very long amendment, so I don't have to spend a lot of time with it, but at the same time it's good to know, especially for those of you that know history and have had to pay poll tax in some way. So, section number 1 says this: the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senators or representatives in Congress shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason or failure to pay poll tax or other tax. Now, it says essentially any primary, number one. Number 2, any election. Of course, we have electors that we actually vote for. So either the primary or the regular election of president or vice president, or for any senator or representative. So this deals with the national elections as a whole. It does not say anything about state or local governments, but I believe that they have their own safeguards there. But the idea is to make sure that there's everyone that's possible that's voting for president or vice president, voting for a senator or representative, that there are no problems attached to it by way of poll taxes. The reason why that's so important is because before this particular amendment was ratified, which was in 1964, what states would do would be that they would charge poll taxes. Now, poll taxes could be small, it could be rather huge, but it was, what do you call it? It was a way to get around the Voting Rights Act, or it was a way to get around the idea that people needed to be able to vote. And so this was primarily used against black citizens of the United States, knowing that many, if not most of them, were very poor. And because they were poor, they had to choose between paying a poll tax or by having dinner or having lunch or having breakfast or having health care. So essentially it was that important for us to be able to assure that no one would be able to charge the people money in order for them to have the right to vote. Because it was rather discriminatory in the first place, it was taken away. Also, if there was anyone, of course, if anyone, let's say that someone instituted a poll tax for everyone, Number one, it would unfairly affect the black population more. So we would essentially be disenfranchised because we didn't have the money. And it also, if you're talking about poor people, it would disenfranchise them on the, and in turn, empower those who were rich or who have money, that their concerns could be taken care of. But those who were poor, those who needed lower health care costs, lower groceries, lower energy, and I mean, all these things that we take for granted now, even though it feels high now, but it was much worse then in terms of the, in terms of the ability to block some people from voting. So because of this amendment, no one could use finances or the lack thereof, or understanding that a particular group of people would be more adversely affected by it. No one could use that either on a ad hoc basis, which meant that you could arbitrarily apply to anyone, whether they were a different color or culture or whatever. That was done away with. They couldn't do that anymore because they were doing that. They were doing that in the South to prevent black people from having their vote. And because it was quite a few of them, they were using that particular aspect. They were using, you had to take a poll test. And when it came to black people, it was unreasonably hard. Interesting. Usually the planes don't fly that much over here. As I was going back now, they would have black people take a test, and the test would be absurdly hard. It was almost like essentially a Jeopardy test, almost. Whereas a person of another persuasion would say, essentially, what the test may have been, what color is the sky? Well, is it blue? Okay, fine, good. You said, when it came to us, it was more like, how does the sky scatter the light across the sky? Of course, most black people are not going to know that. Most people, period, are not going to know that. So that was it. That was a problem. That was an issue. And the same thing with money. The thing that gets me in these situations is how much one group of people tried to ban another group of people from the right to be able to vote for their representative. It would have been much easier if people would come together to agree on what candidate they would like. But that wasn't the case. People wanted to vote for those that they wanted and didn't care about what other people would have liked. And really, that's the whole idea about elections. And we should think about that way, not necessarily what just is just for you, and who cares what anyone else thinks about. But it should be someone who is able to be elected by a broad majority of the people. Because our country right now is so split, we don't get that. If one group of people likes that particular candidate, a whole group of people don't like that candidate. And no one's trying to reach over to the other side. And that essentially is a tragedy that we are suffering right now as a nation. But essentially, the 24th Amendment was to make sure states and counties and local officials could not skirt the law and try to enforce poll taxes or to keep certain people from voting, at least for the national elections. for your president, for your vice president, for your representative, for your senator. The section 2 is very simple. Now I'm not going to take too long with this one, but it says the Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. In other words, the article in itself should have given us power, but the Congress would then have power to have laws which would take away the placing of poll taxes upon any group of people. So now, if you're poor, you can vote. If you're for people that really don't have the resources to vote, you can vote, because you don't have to worry about someone charging you to vote. That wasn't what the founding fathers had wanted us to do, and so we shouldn't try to hoodwink the population by doing the same. It also fits into, just as we add this in, it also fits into the idea of Christ not giving any regard or respect of persons, that everyone has a right to the tree of life. Everyone has a right to salvation. And, of course, everyone should have that same right to vote. May God bless you. May He keep you. Love you all. Take care of yourselves. In Jesus' name.